In the dead of night, a strange smile appears where shadows meet the street. A quiet laugh sends a shiver down your spine. Welcome to the legend of the Smiling Man, a tale of mystery, fear, and secrets waiting to be told. In a quiet town lived many stories that were whispered on dark nights. One of these tales was about a man who always wore a wide, eerie smile. The man was known only as the Smiling Man. He was never seen in the light of day, and his presence was known only when the moon was high in the sky. People in the town spoke of him in soft voices. They said that if you walked alone late at night, you might catch a glimpse of his face. His smile was not a kind one. It was too wide and seemed to hide a secret. Some said that his smile was a warning, while others believed it was a sign of a long-held regret. No one knew where he came from or why he wore that smile. Many years ago, an old story began about the Smiling Man. It was told by grandparents around campfires and in hushed tones at sleepovers. The story said that the Smiling Man was once a kind person who had suffered a great loss. His heart had been hurt so badly that he could only show his feelings with a strange, endless smile. Over time, his smile came to be seen as a symbol of both mystery and fear. Eli, a kind and curious boy of 12, had grown up listening to these tales. He lived in a small house near the old town square. Every night, as he lay in bed, he would think of the legend. He wondered if the stories were true or if they were just tales to scare children. Even though he was brave in many ways, the thought of a man with that eerie smile made him feel uneasy. One warm summer night, Eli decided to take a walk along the quiet streets. The town was sleeping, and the soft light of the moon lit the empty sidewalks. As he strolled slowly, his mind filled with the stories he had heard. He thought of the Smiling Man and wondered if he might see him. His heart beat a little faster with every step. At the corner of a dark street, Eli paused. There, under a flickering streetlight, he saw a tall figure in a neat suit. The man stood perfectly still, his face turned toward the moon, and on his face was a smile that seemed too wide, almost as if it was painted on tracks. His eyes widened, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Was this the Smiling Man from the stories? The man did not move. Instead, he just stood there, smiling as if he had a secret he wanted to share. Eli felt both scared and curious at the same time. He took a step back and decided it was best to return home. But the image of that unnerving smile would stay with him for many days to come. After that night, Eli could not shake the memory of the man with the strange smile. He told his best friend Mia about the encounter the next day. Mia listened carefully and said, "Maybe he is just a person who looks different." But deep down, both Eli and Mia felt that something was not right. That evening, Eli tried to forget what he had seen. He played with his toys and read his favorite books. But as night fell, the memory of the smiling face returned. He sat by his window and stared out at the dark street, wondering if the Smiling Man would come again. Hours passed slowly. Just as Eli began to think the night would be calm, he heard soft footsteps near his house. He looked out, and to his shock, saw the same tall figure standing near the garden. The figure's smile glowed faintly in the moonlight, and his eyes seemed to look straight at Eli. The boy's heart pounded loudly in his chest. He felt as if the Smiling Man was trying to send him a message. Eli did not know what to do. He stayed very still, watching the figure. The Smiling Man slowly turned and began to walk away down the street. Eli wanted to call out, but his voice caught in his throat. The man did not speak. He only walked slowly, as if he was waiting for something. The next morning, the town was filled with whispers about strange sightings on the empty streets. People said that many had seen a man with a wide, eerie smile wandering around. Eli's story was soon repeated by other children who had also seen a mysterious figure at night. Although everyone was a bit scared, they also felt a pull to learn more about this strange man. In school, teachers mentioned that old legends often have hidden truths behind them. They said that sometimes stories are made to help people remember important lessons. Eli began to wonder what lesson the Smiling Man might be trying to teach. Was he a warning, a messenger, or perhaps a lost soul in need of help? These questions kept Eli awake at night as he thought of the man's unsettling smile. Eli decided he needed to find out more about the Smiling Man. He started by asking his grandparents about the old stories. His grandmother told him, "Long ago, there was a man who lost someone very dear to him. He could not bear the pain, so he hid behind a smile that never faded." Though the tale was simple, it was filled with sadness. Eli listened carefully, trying to understand the deep sorrow behind that smile. Next, Eli visited the local library. The library was a quiet place filled with old books and papers. He searched for records of the man from the legend. In a dusty book, he read a small article about a man who had lived in the town many years ago. The article said that the man was known for his cheerful smile even in hard times. But when a great misfortune struck his family, his smile turned into something that many found strange. Some people believed that he wore the smile as a mask to hide his true pain. Eli read more and more about the man. The more he learned, the more he felt that the smiling man was a part of the town's past. He learned that the man's name was Mr. Harold and that he had lived a long time ago. Mr. Harold was kind to many, but his heart broke when he lost his best friend in an accident. His grief was so strong that he could not let go of the memory. Instead, he smiled all the time, as if he hoped that one day his friend might come back. Many people said that Mr. Harold wandered the streets at night, his smile both comforting and scary. Some believed that his spirit could not rest because he was filled with too many sad memories. Eli wondered if the smiling man he had seen was Mr. Harold's ghost. The thought both frightened and intrigued him. He felt that if he could learn the truth, he might help put the troubled spirit to rest. That night, with a notebook in hand, Eli went back outside to watch the street. He stood near the place where he had first seen the smiling figure. The moon was high, and the night was silent, except for the sound of his own breathing. He waited patiently. At last, the smiling man appeared again at the corner of the street. This time, he walked slowly, as if he had a purpose. Eli took careful notes about what he saw, trying to remember every small detail of the man's face and his slow, deliberate steps. Eli noticed that the man's eyes held a deep sadness behind the smile. It was as if he was trying to say something that he could not speak. Eli felt a tug in his heart. He wanted to help, but he was also very scared. Still, he promised himself that he would keep watching and try to understand the mystery. The more he learned, the more he believed that the truth could free the spirit of the smiling man from his endless sorrow. As the days passed, Eli's curiosity grew stronger. He began to visit the street every night. He often hid behind trees or parked cars so that he could watch the figure without being seen. Each time, the smiling man would appear at the same place and walk along the same path. His smile was as wide and strange as ever, and his eyes still shone with a hidden sadness. One cool night, when the stars shone brightly, Eli felt a boldness he had not known before. He stepped out from his hiding spot and decided to follow the smiling man. He kept a safe distance as he trailed the mysterious figure through quiet streets. The man walked slowly and seemed to be in deep thought. Eli followed him as he passed by empty houses and silent shops. The smiling man finally stopped in front of an old, abandoned building at the end of the street. The building looked very old and unwelcoming. Eli felt his heart beat quickly. He watched as the man stood at the building's door, his smile still present as if it was a part of him. For a few long moments, they both stood there in silence. Then the man slowly turned his head and looked directly at Eli. It was as if he knew that he was being followed. Eli felt a mix of fear and pity. The man's eyes, filled with sorrow, seemed to search for something. Perhaps forgiveness or a way to mend his broken heart. In that moment, the smiling man's face changed ever so slightly. The smile became a little softer, and his eyes seemed to plead for help. Eli could not speak, and neither could the smiling man. For a long while, they simply looked at each other under the quiet night sky. The moment felt very heavy. Then, without a word, the smiling man turned and slowly walked away into the darkness of the abandoned building. Eli watched him disappear, feeling both scared and strangely sorry for the man. He wondered if this was a sign that the spirit needed help to heal his old wounds. Eli returned home that night with his heart full of questions. He had seen the sadness behind the smile and had felt that the spirit was calling out for someone to understand his pain. The memory of that long, sorrowful gaze stayed with Eli for days. He felt that his encounter was more than just a strange meeting. It was a call for help from a long-lost soul who had never found peace. That night, as Eli lay in bed, he thought of Mr. Harold, the man from the old stories. He felt that the smiling man was trying to tell him a secret about love, loss, and the need for forgiveness. With a deep sigh, Eli promised himself that he would do whatever he could to uncover the full truth behind the urban legend and help set the spirit free. In the days that followed, Eli shared his experiences with Mia and his family. Although they were worried for him, they also listened with great interest. His parents reminded him that legends were often a mix of truth and stories meant to scare. Yet, they also said that sometimes a legend carries a message from the past that needs to be heard. Eli and Mia began to visit the old library and the town hall to look for more records about Mr. Harold. They found faded newspaper clippings and simple records that told of a kind man who had once helped many in the town. The clippings mentioned that Mr. Harold was known for his bright smile even in hard times, but that he had suffered a great loss that he could not mend. The more they read, the more it seemed that the smiling man was not a monster, but a troubled soul caught in a time of pain. As the days turned into weeks, the sightings of the smiling man grew less frequent. Some nights, Eli would still catch a glimpse of a figure near the old building, but the face was hidden and the eerie smile was gone. It was as if the spirit had finally found a way to rest. The town began to speak of the legend less with fear and more with a gentle understanding of the deep sorrow that had haunted them all. Eli learned a very important lesson from his experience. He learned that sometimes what seems scary at first may hide a story of deep pain and loss. The smiling man was not there to harm anyone. He was a reminder that every person, no matter how kind or strong they seem, may carry sadness inside. Eli realized that the true horror was not in the strange face or the eerie smile, but in the loneliness and regret that could make someone feel lost. Over time, Eli kept the story of the smiling man close to his heart. He wrote down everything he had seen and learned. His notebook filled with simple words that told the tale of a man who could not forget his pain. Even though the encounters were frightening, they helped the town remember that every story has two sides. The legend was not only about fear, it was also about understanding, forgiveness, and the power of sharing our feelings. Eli's brave search for the truth brought him respect from his friends and neighbors. People began to see him as a kind soul who cared about the old stories and the lessons they held. In the end, the urban legend of the smiling man became a story that taught everyone about the need to listen with compassion and to look beyond the surface of a smile. The haunting encounter had changed the town, reminding everyone that even the saddest souls deserve a chance to be heard. As the seasons changed, the memory of the smiling man slowly faded into a gentle legend. The quiet nights still carried whispers of the past, and children would sometimes talk about a man with a mysterious smile. But now, those whispers were filled with hope and the lesson that even a haunted past can lead to a peaceful future. Eli's journey showed that courage and kindness can help heal even the deepest wounds. As the night grows still, the echoes of a once haunting smile linger in memory. The legend of the smiling man reminds us that every face hides a story. Thank you for listening. May you always find light, even in the darkest tales.